Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. This right here, folks, is exactly why they keep this guy in the basement. Just like the Kamala Harris video that I made a couple weeks ago, once again, the president and vice president duo give us the perfect example, show us exactly why they spend most of their times in the damn cellar with White House aides controlling every single thing that they do and say, and even controlling their social media accounts, pretending to be them. Because every time they speak, every time they do an interview, it is a total train wreck. I always draw the comparison to Donald Trump. You know, with the Don 45, the more you listen to him speak, the more you realize that he's right about a bunch of things. I mean, that was basically the story of his 2016 historic win. The media was saying one thing, but the more you actually listened to Donald Trump, the more you realized he was on your side and he was competent and knew what he was talking about. Now, the exact opposite is true for this administration. The more you hear them speak, the more you get to know him, the more you wish that you didn't. And here we go once again, Joe Biden comes out of the basement and makes another huge mess that the White House is now forced to clean up. Let me show you guys exactly what's going on here, so let's roll the tape. Hey friends, there's only one way really to describe this, an unmitigated disaster. We covered Kamala Harris's NBC disaster, now it's Joe Biden's time. This guy is just not prepared to handle real questions. This is the same criticism that I keep lobbing his direction, that he's playing politics instead of doing his damn job. We are currently going through an economic crisis, similar to the stagflation of the 1980s, except it might even be worse. And of course, here's a president who's largely responsible, and yet instead of taking the issue seriously, he continues to cope. Just up an inch, Joe Biden says. Biden downplays his record 8.2% inflation numbers as he destroys the middle class.
Mr. President, as you know, last Tuesday, the annual inflation rate came in at 8.3%. The stock market nosedived. People are shocked by their grocery bills. What can you do better and faster?
Well, first of all, let's put this in perspective. Inflation rate month to month was just an inch. Hardly at all.
You're not arguing that 8.3 is good news.
No, I'm not saying it is good news, but it was 8.2 or 8.2 before. I mean, it's not, I can make it sound like all of a sudden, my God, it went to 8.2%. It's
the highest inflation rate, Mr. President, in 40 years.
I got that, but guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months, it hasn't spiked. It has just barely, it's been basically even. And in the meantime, we created all these jobs, and prices have gone up, but they've come down for energy. The fact is that we've created 10 million new jobs. Since we came to office. We're in a situation where the unemployment rate is about 3.7%, one of the lowest in history. We're in a situation where manufacturing is coming back to the United States in a big way.
You're acting like all of a sudden, oh my God, it went up to 8.2%, Joe Biden says. And then he claims that inflation has leveled off. What the hell is this guy talking about? I mean, I'm trying not to get frustrated, but I'm legitimately angry. Inflation leveled off, sarcastically saying, oh, all of a sudden, oh my God, implying that people aren't justified in their worry and in their frustration. This guy is a complete clown, and just the utter hypocrisy. I mean, take a look what Jill Biden said the other night.
So Joe made a promise, if you remember, back on the campaign trail. He made this promise to rebuild the middle class. It's why he ran.
Joe Biden ran because he wanted to rebuild the middle class. And now here we are in a historic scenario where the middle class is getting absolutely destroyed, and this guy is coping. Oh, well, inflation is only 8.2%, almost acting as if it's not a big deal at all. That's the problem. That right there is the issue. The denial and the copium and the incompetence. I mean, take a look at what MSNBC of all places just reported.
Of course, what hovers over all of this, though, is again, the economy. You saw the Republican advantage on the economy. And when you ask this question about Joe Biden, the effect his policies have had in the economy, a 2-to-1 margin, folks saying it's more hurt the economy than help the economy.
A 2-to-1 margin of Americans believe that Joe Biden's policies have hurt the economy more than helped. Yet he continues to declare victory on inflation, continues to downplay it. He refuses that we're in a recession or headed into a severe recession, and he continues to fail to acknowledge that people are unhappy because of his leadership. I mean, he's in such a deep state of denial, it's crazy. He's still using this talking point.
Your approval rating in the country is well below 50%. And I wonder why you think that is.
This is a really difficult time. We're at an inflection point in the history of this country. We're going to make decisions, and we're making decisions now that are going to determine what we're going to look like the next 10 years from now. I think you'd agree that the impact on the psyche of the American people as a consequence of the pandemic is profound. Think of how that has changed everything. People's attitudes about themselves, their families, about the state of the nation, about the state of their communities. And so there's a lot of uncertainty out there, a great deal of uncertainty.
The reason people disapprove of Joe Biden is not because he's an absolute failure, but rather because they're psychologically unable to be happy. You're the problem, not me. It's the opposite of the breaking up with someone cliche, it's not you, it's me. What Joe Biden is saying, it's not me, it's you. Absolute craziness. This guy's a complete disgrace. But of course, the whole inflation or economy gaffe wasn't even nearly the worst. This was probably the worst moment of the interview.
You are the oldest president ever.
Pretty good shape, huh?
Which leads to my next question. You are more aware of this than anyone. Some people ask whether you are fit for the job. And when you hear that, I wonder what you think.
Watch me. I mean, honest to God, that's all I think. Watch me. If you think I don't have the energy level or the mental acuity, then that's one thing. It's another thing of just watch and keep my schedule. Do what I'm doing. I think that, I don't, when I sit down with our NATO allies and keep them together, I don't have them saying, wait a minute, well, how old are you? What did they say? It's a matter of, that old expression, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. I mean, I respect the fact that people would say, you're old. But I think it relates to how much energy you have and whether or not the job you're doing is one consistent with what any person of any age would be able to do.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused. I have trouble even saying to myself my own head the number of years. I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly. I mean, it's just not, I haven't observed anything in terms of, there's not things I don't do now that I did before, whether it's physical or mental or anything else.
I mean, did you guys hear that when Joe Biden was questioned, how do you think your mental focus is?
I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
What is this guy even saying? I have no idea what he's talking about. He also said, watch me, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Well, that's kind of the problem there, Joe. We've been watching.
Watch me. If you think I don't have the energy level or the mental acuity. The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. Of Putin's kleptocracy, yeah. America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him Los Angeles and what am I doing here?
Joe Biden also said in the earlier clip that there's nothing he can't do that he was able to do before. Joe Biden's basically the same as he was 20 years ago, he claims. Yeah, except the problem is, Joe, you can't speak anymore. You can't talk. You can't ride a bike. You can't walk upstairs. You could barely, move around. You're like shuffling around. Like a Japanese prototype robot that walks around all weird. For Pete's sakes, we covered the report of White House aides panicking over wires on the floor because they're scared that Joe Biden's gonna trip over them because he shuffles when he walks. This interview was a total disaster for the White House, and we're seeing a similar trend here. White House scrambles to explain what Joe Biden really meant to say on 60 Minutes. And this, of course, joins the long history of the White House, telling us what Joe Biden actually meant when he said what he said. Just Google White House corrects Joe Biden and it's nonstop endless results. White House corrects Joe Biden. Isn't Joe Biden supposed to be the White House? It's more proof that this guy is nothing but a puppet. The White House seems to be an entire entirely separate entity from the president, unprecedented stuff, and of course also an unprecedented and totally unmitigated disaster that is the Brandon regime. It's nothing but lies, copium, hypocrisy, incompetence, failure, you name it. Any negative word in the dictionary applies to the Brandon regime. But the word that constantly comes to mind is of course hypocrisy. The absolute hypocrisy of this administration is probably one of the worst offenses. Here's the last clip, but just take a look at what Joe Biden had to say.
What we do today, think about it. It's all personal attacks. It's about motive. It's not about I disagree with you on the subject matter.
Joe Biden calls out how divisive politics is these days. It's all about attacking people Joe Biden decries. After spending the last 2 weeks talking about people who disagree with him politically, being enemies of the states, threats to democracy, and literal fascists. I really don't like saying this or using this word, but I save this word and I only use it when I really mean it, and I really mean it. I hate this guy. And I'm sure millions upon millions of people feel the exact same way. And probably even more so after this interview. I mean, just send this guy back to the basement, please. I don't want to have to endure another second of listening to this clown speak. That's what I got for you guys though. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. I'm going to get back to work. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next one.